So, hi guys. I'm not going to lie to you. Uh, these scrolling reactions are a lot easier than the my initial way of making videos on this channel was to just take screenshots of sections of the article, paste them into a PowerPoint slide, and then try to create something. With these scrolling reactions, I just, find some interesting article to read through, and then we just kind of go through it together. The problem is, though, that if I find anything really long, it's hard to break up the video into two parts. So, if I have energy to do screenshots and paste them into a PowerPoint, but make something nice to look at, if you do happen to look at the screen instead of me just scrolling through something, I would, but it's a lot of work, to do that. So if I feel like doing it, I will, but if I don't feel like doing it, maybe I'll just figure out some way to stop the video midway or something. I don't know how I will do a two-parter with a scrolling thing. Anyway, how are you doing? How is everything? So I decided to look up some articles on pantsing because I found out that there are still writers who don't know what a pantser is, because there was somebody on Instagram, can't remember their name, anyway, that she was talking about her writing methods and styles, and I thought, hey, fellow pantser, and then she said, that sounds cool, what's a pantser? And I thought, oh, she doesn't know what a pantser is. And I remembered another writer asking, what is a pantser, can you explain? I'm like, it's interesting how so many people don't know. So I thought, okay, let's look up what are writing advice articles saying about pantsering. So I found this website called selfpublishing.com. Now, not to confuse this with Self-Publishing School, that's a completely different website. I quite like Self-Publishing School, actually. The writing advice articles are probably the best ones, but they're still missing something. Some things need to be improved. Anyway, that's Self-Publishing School. This is just selfpublishing.com. And I thought, okay, well, I'm self-publishing and I'm a pantser. I thought, that's a pretty good match of me to react to this. So we're going to go through this. It's titled, Should You Write as a Pantser? I feel like this is an attack on me, so let's see what they're saying and see if I agree or disagree, because not to say that pantsing is like the golden best thing there ever was. I mean, of course, there's some downfalls about being a pantser. There's also some downfalls about being a plotter, too. I know that because I've read about it, and I've also heard plotters talk about it. Like, you can start plotting, and then you've been plotting for, 10 years or something. Anyway, not to get ahead of ourselves here, plotter versus pantser, posted by PJ McNulty. I feel like I've heard this name before, PJ McNulty. I'm not sure where. Are they an author or something? I don't know. Anyway, so immediately they want you to sign up for some kind of thing. Let's begin here. If you've started the process of researching how to write a novel, you may well have encountered the term pantser, but what exactly is a pantser? If you were too shy to ask, this article has got you covered. We'll explain exactly what writing as a pantser entails, explore if it's the right option for you, and provide some other ways of writing you may wish to consider. Unlike other terms related to book writing, pantser is less than obvious. If you hear the term plotter, you immediately understand it has something to do with plotting, but what about pantser? No need to get your pants in a twist. Let's delve straight into it. No need to get your pants in a twist. Is that a phrase? I feel like that should be a different word anyway. Anyway, what they are saying here is in this article. See, the thing about writing advice articles, this thing about the introductions of articles is that I don't know when they are written. At least they don't seem to be revising the introductions to articles after they finish writing the article to match with the rest of the article, because they promise that, oh, we're going to do this, and then they don't do it. So a lot of time, anyway. I'm not saying every time, but a lot of the time. They're going to explain what writing as a pantser entails. They're going to explore if it's the right option for you. And they're going to provide some other ways of writing you may wish to consider. So just saying, oh, pantsing isn't like the only way to do things. Of course, they're saying pantser versus plotter, so I'm guessing that they're only going to be talking about pantser and plotter and not the in-betweeny, which is pantser. We'll see. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they actually do. First, let's get up here, nice and cozy. What is a pantser? So what is a pantser? A pantser is a writer who works without an outline, a term derived from the concept of writing by the seat of your pants. It stands in contrast to a plotter, who is someone who outlines their work to a greater or lesser extent. That's not to say that pantsers go into the book writing process totally blind. They may have the start of their story in mind or overall theme or concept. However, they let the direction of their work However, they let the direction their work takes develop during the writing process itself. This approach has both advantages as drawbacks don't they mean this approach has both advantages and drawbacks? That's a mistake there. As we will explore later in the article. But before we get into the pros and cons of being a pantser and determine whether it's the right approach for you and your book, let's contrast it in more depth with the other approach to writing, plotting. That is not the other approach. There is another one. But anyway, yeah, so this is the exact meaning of what pantser is. And when I first found out, I can't remember how I found out. I think I found this out through Instagram. I think it was Instagram, actually. Because I don't think I was talking about pantsing or knew about it before then, but I remember the moment I heard it, I thought, well, that's exactly me. And I like that term. It's fun. Saying pantser is fun. It's every time I try to write pantser, spell check changes it to panther. So I guess I'm a panther. Anyway, tangent. So it's the concept of writing by the seat of your pants. You just sit down and you start writing. That's exactly what I do. It is often contrasted to a plotter, someone who outlines their work. Like I've seen plotters on Instagram showing their wall of sticky notes, and I'm like, how are you so organized? How are you so organized? And then like some people have like entire diagrams and like Excel notes and all that stuff. And I'm like, how do you even manage to do that? It's almost ridiculous. Anyway, that's what I feel. I thought, oh my gosh, the lengths in which these people go to do that. It's nice to look at, like aesthetically pleasing to look at all those different colors. And some people have like character plot lines and like subplot lines and then overarching plot lines and all different colors of sticky notes and everything. And they build the map and everything is all set up and ready to go when they are ready, which I don't know when they are ready, but they will be ready. And when they are, they're gonna really plow through that story, I think. I once knew somebody who was plotting for 10 years, and then they wrote like a 100K word novel in a month. That was surprising because I thought that if you have been plotting for that long, it would be hard to get into the writing part, but I guess not for them. So anyway, pantser versus plotter. We're going to pin them against each other, aren't we? A plotter is someone who takes the time is missing. A plotter is someone who takes the time outlining the events of their story in advance of writing it. Rather than letting the story evolve organically as they write, plotters start the process with a detailed breakdown of the events that will occur. Plotters can prepare to various extents. Some may have a vague outline, such as writing down the major scenes that will occur, while still giving themselves some flexibility as far as exactly what happens and how they get to their major story milestones. Others choose to write not only every chapter, but a detailed structure of exactly what will occur in that chapter and in which order. Oh, I've seen that. I've seen plotters go way into the details of their chapters, and all down to all the nitty-gritties of the conflicts and what the characters are going to talk about, at which and what point is everything is going to be brought up. And I guess that is a good way to do some things, but I can't work like that. I've tried, but I just can't. Panthers, on the other hand, allow themselves total freedom to go with the flow and let their story develop freely. Put simply, there's an issue. All right. Put simply, the issue of pantser versus plotter comes down to the level of detail in place regarding a story's events before the writing process begins. Plotters prefer to work with a greater... I think they meant to say pantsers here, because it says plotters prefer to work with a greater level of freedom, while plotters prefer to write to a plan. They meant to say pantsers. Look, hey, publishing, what was it? Self-publishing.com, author PJ McNulty. This is a big mistake here, but if I can understand that this is supposed to be pantsers and not plotters, then probably other people can too, but I think you need to edit, and meanwhile, while you're at it, you should edit the other things that you missed before. Anyway, pantsers, not plotters, prefer to work with a greater level of freedom, while plotters prefer to write to a plan. Now that you know the difference between the two major schools of though, did anybody read through this article after it was written? Come on, you can spot these things if you read it through it, because I'm spotting them as I'm reading through it. Now that you know the difference between the two major schools of thought, it should be thought, regarding writing planning. What? Wait, hold on. There's 3 INGs at the end there. Wait, hold on. Now that you know the difference between the two major schools of regarding writing planning. I have no idea what they're trying to say there. Do you have any idea? Schools of thought regarding writing planning. Like, what do you think they were trying to say? Regarding writer's planning? Regarding pantsing and plotting? I have no idea. Maybe they didn't even mean to put planning here. Maybe they want to say schools of thought regarding writing, or regarding planning writing. I don't know. What do you think they were trying to say here? I have no idea. Let's take a closer look. Okay, this article was a mess of typos. PJ McNulty must have been extremely excited. Let's take a look, because when I'm excited writing something, I make lots of typos. That's why I say he was probably very excited. I don't know if it's a male, female writer. I don't know. I'm just PJ McNulty. I just know an author named McNulty, and it being a male author. I don't know. Anyway, they should fix this. Take a closer look at the plus sides. We should start saying, take a closer look at the plus sides and drawbacks of taking a pantser approach to writing fiction. Okay, plus sides and drawbacks. Okay, so now after we have pinned pantser and plotter against each other, we are going to talk about the plus sides and drawbacks of pantsing. Okay. So, plotters, yeah, so anyway, pantsers allow themselves total freedom to go with the flow and let the story develop freely. Yes, exactly what I do is I just Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. The issue comes down to the level of detail in place regarding a story's events before. Okay, so yeah, so they are just kind of repeating themselves. What they are saying here, put simply, I guess they're putting it simply, I guess. So panthers, greater level of freedom. Plotters, we gotta plan the details. That's basically it. Basically, you got it? Good. Basically, that's what it is. What are the benefits of writing as a pantser? Choosing to write as a pantser has a number of benefits. After all, if it didn't, no writers would take this approach. Did you know Stephen King is a pantser? And look how much stuff he publishes. If that doesn't scream pantser success, I don't know what does. I don't know what does at all. So what are some of the major benefits and plus points to writing without a detailed outline? By the way, when was this article published? We have no idea. Okay, we have no idea. All right. I was just curious because sometimes it matters when the article is published, like if they mention like an author. Usually it's an author that was trending or popular at the time that the article was written. Although Stephen King he's always trending and popular, isn't he? See where your story goes. I don't know why I'm talking like this. Okay. Once you are engaged in the process of writing fiction, your mind will work on it, both consciously and subconsciously. If you write to a strict outline, you lose the chance to form new connections and realizations mentally during the writing process. Choosing the pantser route allows you to follow your instinct and intuition as you go, writing whatever feels natural and proper in the moment. Okay, so there was hold on. Story moment. Okay, so I am in a bunch of writing-based Discord groups that are based out of Wattpad. And in one of the Discord writing groups, I once got to talking with a plotter. And I asked them exactly something related to, if you write a strict outline, you lose the chance to form new connections and realizations mentally during the writing process. I asked them, like, what if while you are writing, you realize that something in your outline just doesn't quite match up and you want to change it? What do you do? And so this is just based on one person. Okay, so that person said that what they do is that they go back to the outline and fix what is in the outline. And they said that for them, their outline is quite sort of, not loose, but it's not completely set in stone. So they do allow for like some free flowing ideas and stuff to happen during the writing process, and then they go to the outline and then they sort of fix it, and then they rework things in the outline if other things need to be reworked during the process, and then they continue on writing after that. Am I making sense? I'm just talking from the top of my brain. Okay, so seems like some plotters, or at least that one person, does allow their outline to be a little bit more, how do you say it? Like, it's not really fluid, but flowy, but flexible. That's what I wanted to say. Flexible. Yes, more flexible. So I don't know if all plotters do this, but some plotters, at least that one person, allows their outline to be more flexible. So while they are writing, they allow the outline to change. So anyway, side note thing, but I thought I remembered that when I read this part. Okay. So Choosing the pantser route allows you to follow your instinct and intuition as you go. Yeah, definitely. I'm just writing, and sometimes there comes a point where it just sort of runs on its own. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like suddenly the story has a mind of its own, and the characters are starting to do things that you didn't expect them to do. It's getting very juicy and interesting. And so you just become like the journalist running after your characters and writing down the story as they go. I don't know how it happens, but it's very crazy and weird, but it does happen. And when it happens, I say, okay, here we go. This is the momentum I was hoping for. Some stories, that happens very quickly for me, but some stories for me, it doesn't happen as quickly as I hoped that it would happen. And then I'm just like, when is it going to happen? When are the characters going to take over the story for me? I'm struggling here, guys. Where are you? And then they're like, here we are. And I'm like, you're late. So, the freedom to change your mind. If you have a detailed outline before starting your story, you make your mind up about your characters' fates before you really get to know them. Pantsing allows you to adopt as you gain greater familiarity with your characters, allowing them to act in ways that feel right after you've spent some time writing them. If you have a detailed outline before starting your story, you make your mind up. Yeah, pantsing allows you to adopt as you gain familiarity with your characters. I usually have some vague idea about who my guy is. So, like if I know that my character is very full of himself and just very confident and narcissistic, but he has this sort of vulnerability that he's actually hiding, then I would make sure that there are times where that seeps through a little bit, like his vulnerability. But in terms of like why he's vulnerable, like his backstory and that sort of thing, like how this character became this way, that sort of deeper side of the character is sort of like created as I'm writing the story. So like I don't know why he's like this. I just know he is. So that just comes up during the story. Like usually it's about the middle part, because the middle part is where like the characters decide to, I don't know, air out their laundry, I guess you could say. Talk about their past and like become sentimental or sad or whatever, and they start talking about themselves a little bit more. And then that's when I realize that, oh, that is why he is so trying to be so full of himself, because this actually happened in the past, so he feels like he needs to be guarded or whatever. That's how he's guarding himself or whatever, like something like that. So I do have an idea of what he is, just not how he is, and the how he is part comes up in the middle part of the story, usually for me, or a little bit before that, because I'm always thinking ahead of what I want to have happen by what point. So in the middle part, I know that the character is going to like talk about their feelings. So, and that is where I think, okay, so what kind of feelings are he going to talk about? And it's going to somehow relate to why he is the way he is. So someone who is confident in everything, what are they actually doing? And so I might even look up like psychology of narcissists or something like that, and figure out exactly why people are the way they are, and that comes into play in the story. Am I just rambling? Am I making sense at all? So what I'm saying is that I agree with them. I agree with this article. Pantsing allows you to adopt as you gain familiarity with your characters. So I'm like learning about them, figuring them out, okay, and then they might do something, and then, okay, like this is how they act, okay, I get it. Excitement of discovering your plot. Okay, here he is, Stephen King is one of the most famous pantser writers. He describes the process of writing a story as like excavating a dinosaur bone. You might have a rough idea in mind of its shape, but discovering what it really looks like gradually is part of the pleasure. Pantsing allows you to experience the excavation process. Interesting way of putting it, Stephen King. Interesting way of putting it. I've heard some people saying a pantser is also called a discovery writer. You're definitely discovering your plot as you go along. At least that's what happens with me. And usually, though, I do have a vague idea of the beginning, middle, and end. So for me, I write towards the end. So I am definitely searching how I want this story to end. So now I just have to get everything to the end. Whatever happens just has to magically move to the end. And there's some things, like some twists that happen that I didn't expect would happen. And then they happen, and then I'm like, okay, so how am I going to connect this to the end? Like, what is this plot hole? Like, what am I going to do? And then I get these moments like, aha, I know exactly what to do, exactly how to connect these puzzle pieces. And then it becomes like this whole typity storm to connect them. And then it's just riddled with plot holes still. So I fixed that during the second draft. The first draft is just, I'm just going to forcefully connect these with this great idea I have, which I know is still a skeleton of an idea, but we're going to get there somehow. Okay, quicker to get started. Outlining your book can be a time-consuming and sometimes tedious process. This is especially true if you choose to write an in-depth breakdown of each and every chapter. If you opt to write as a pantser, you spend less time preparing, allowing you to get into the thick of writing quicker. These are some of the major reasons why you may wish to adopt the pantser approach for your book. I don't know why I said for your book. What the heck is that? What about the drawbacks? Okay, so quicker to get started. Yeah, that's true. We start writing faster. Like if I say, okay, I'm a pantser, and then another person says, I'm a plotter. Let's race to see who will finish writing a book first. Ready, go. And I already start writing. I'm already writing typey. While the plotter is over there like mapping the structure of the plot. And then several years later, I'm like, I'm done my first draft. And the plotter is like, hey, I'm just getting started. So, I mean, that's how I imagine it would be if we actually like took two people, a pantser and a plotter, and just actually raced them. That would be wild. That would be wild. But then after that, editing might look a little bit different, because maybe do pantsers actually have more drafts than a plotter? Because of how many plot holes that we have that the plotter wouldn't have because they had planned everything beforehand. I don't know. I think it depends on the person. Anyway. So those are all the good things. The benefits. Oh, you have so much freedom to change your mind. It's all natural and the characters do all kinds of things and you can discover it and get excited and you can start faster. Yay! What about the drawbacks? What are the dangers of writing as dangers of writing as a pantser? Why choose this word? I mean, it's like I'm writing as a pantser, so it's somehow like toxic or like dangerous. I'm going to, I don't know, what dangerous. It's a little dramatic, don't you think? Of course, writing as a pantser has a number of potential disadvantages to be avoided. Skillful writers can mitigate most of them, but to do so, you need to know what they are in advance. I don't know. I didn't know what they were in advance. I've always been a pantser and figured out what works and what doesn't for me, and then figured out what to do when I come upon whatever issues, and I didn't have to read an article to figure that out. But anyway, each to their own. Uneven pacing. One of the major risks you take as a pantser is distorting the pacing of your book. I'm just laughing because distorting, oh my gosh, you're so dramatic. You may get caught up in the flow and make your opening section longer than it should be. You know what? I think plotters would do the same thing. Or if you're like a novice writer, you might have like 10 pages of backstory. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're a planner or a plotter. I keep wanting to say planner instead of plotter because, anyway, it doesn't matter if you're a plotter or a pantser. If you're a novice writer, you might do it anyway, but experienced writers have a natural feel for how long fiction should be, including its various sections, but this may prove challenging if you're a new writer. See, if you're a new writer, it would be challenging. It doesn't matter, though, if you're a pantser or a plotter. I think the same thing happens, you know. I mean, I'm just repeating myself, but experienced writers have a natural feel for how long fiction should be. Do they? Because there are so many books out there, like traditionally published books even, you just think about that. There's so many different lengths. I mean, I've read so many different lengths novels, 300 pages to 800 pages to 200 pages to, I don't know, there might be more than that, you know, who knows. So, I don't know. Is there a length of fiction? Like, should fiction be a certain length? I don't know. I mean, books like Perdido Street Station was pretty long. I haven't read it, but Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell that's a really thick book. And that's a debut book, right? I think it was. That is pretty long. Is there a limit? Is there, you know, I don't know. Anyway, lack of structure. Most stories follow a tried and tested structure, whether that's the hero's journey, the 3-act structure, or something more complex. If you take the pantser approach, you may end up missing out on the tried and tested story structures that readers expect and have been proven to love. Yeah, okay, so I've seen some criticism on the 3-act structure by someone who was a plotter. It was a YouTube video, so I don't remember exactly who the name of the person or anything, because it was just a video that popped up on my recommend, and they were like, you don't have to follow this 3-act structure. Yes, it's something that readers would expect, but then all the stories sound the same. So if you want to be unique, this is what they were saying. So if you want to be unique, don't follow it. It's fine. There are books out there that don't follow it. At least that's what they were saying. So, yeah, so then everything sounds samey, you know, oh, the hero's journey and all that stuff. Or you don't follow it and you be unique. So I do agree, yes, that when you're a pantser, it does lack some structure. But if you understand like a beginning, like a story has a beginning, there's the middle, and there's the end. And it does help to read a lot of books, because you do realize that at the beginning, this kind of stuff happens. And in the middle, this kind of stuff happens. And then leading up to the climax, this kind of stuff happens. And then at the end, this kind of stuff happens. So if you have a basic idea of, like, you know, you read a book and then you realize that, oh, there's some kind of structure here, and then you get a feel for it, and then you pants it with the feel. I've been fine. Not to say that I'm like some spectacular writer or anything, or that I don't need to know a structure, but I've been fine I didn't even know about the 3-act structure when I started writing. I didn't know about any of the story writing stuff when I started writing. I just started writing. After I'd been reading a lot of books, I just started writing. And here I am, about to self-publish a book, coming out in October, by the way. So, just because you don't know, you may end up missing out. Yeah, I might end up missing out, so what? That's what I feel, anyway. Proven to love? Yes, of course, because Readers will read what is published out in the published world. That doesn't mean that this 3-act story structure is something that's been proven to love. I'm pretty sure even if it doesn't really follow like a structure, readers will still read it if it's interesting and unique and interesting and exciting and fun and published out there. Because I would, and I read a lot of books, so. Getting stuck midway through. A huge advantage to writing to an outline is you always know what's going to come next. As a pantser, you run the risk of running out of ideas midway through, or you might come up with an idea, but it would contradict something you'd written earlier. Outlining in advance allows you to avoid this dilemma. Yes, it does. However, there is a way to do things, okay? So what I do as a pantser is that, okay, I've come to a point where I just don't feel like writing anymore, but I do have ideas for what's going to happen next. So I'm just going to write notes like, main character goes into her room and then she takes a shower and then there is a knock on her door. And then I just type like, someone knocking. And then the next line is, her friend has returned from the trip unannounced. And then the next line is, comes out of shower, they have a conversation, something exciting happens or whatever. And then the next line is some big news, something about moving or someone breaking up or something exciting, shocking, exclamation point. And then I just make it like very simple, like almost like text messagey. And then I leave it like that. And so then the next time I open my document, it's not like I don't have anything to work off of. I have yesterday's ideas to work off of. And so if yesterday's ideas aren't like suiting me right now, I just completely ignore them and write something completely different. But at least I'm not working off of a blank page. There's still something, even if I choose to ignore it after spending so much time writing it yesterday. So that's what I do to avoid getting stuck. I also like to do this thing where I give myself curveballs. So if I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a little midway point, oh, it's the boring part, blah, 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 blah. And so I do something shocking, like, I don't know, lights go out. There's a storm, it starts raining, oh my gosh, action, something happens, terrible, bad. Or shocking, someone returns and now what are you going to do, writer? This person has returned. You weren't expecting them to return from another 2 chapters and now they are here. What are the characters going to do? Oh my gosh, what are you doing here? We weren't expecting you back yet. So I just give myself these curveballs and then I have to force myself to figure out how to work it in, and then somehow it's exciting again, so then I keep on writing. Those are some stuff that worked for me as a pantser when I get stuck. To avoid getting stuck. This is something I've developed after doing the Nano November challenge. So I guess some good has come out of that. So yes, outlining in advance allows you to avoid these sort of pitfalls of being a pantser. But if you want to continue push being a pantser, there are ways to deal with the boring middle point. Okay. Lack of careful deliberation. When you outline your novel, you give yourself the chance to carefully deliberate and weigh up the pros. Weigh up. Isn't this like weigh, like when you weigh yourself, that way, not this way? Weigh up the pros and cons of different sections. You can also see how all the pieces fit together, ensuring your story's ending makes sense with the way it starts. Pantsers don't have that big picture advantage. Yeah, that's true. But that's what a second draft is for. Look, that's what editing is for. Come on. Are you going to expect us to write a completely polished first draft? Everybody. not everybody, PJ McNulty. Um, yeah, so yes, outlining, you can, plan everything that's going to happen and fit everything together into a nice, neat little finished jigsaw puzzle. But if you're a pantser and you are just writing and there is a bunch of plot holes, you just edit them in for the second draft. That's what I do for all my second drafts. The second draft is to figure out the flow and the structure. That's what I do for the second draft. So, just because you're lacking deliberation doesn't mean it's the end of the world here. It's not a danger of writing as a pantser. I mean, what are you talking about? So I think you're weird. Okay, that's my thought. So now you know the potential downsides of choosing to write as a pantser. Before you explore how to choose the right approach for your next book, let's consider whether plotting and pantsing can be mixed to any extent. Okay, we're going to talk about the mix, finally. Can you mix being a pantser and a plotter? For the most part, no, you can't. Okay, you can't mix being a pantser and a plotter. They are opposite approaches. If you have planned out your book, you no longer have the freedom of writing as a true pantser. However, there are ways you can make something of a hybrid approach as long as you're not totalitarian about your definition of what a pantser is. For example, you might wish to plot in detail certain key moments of your book, but allow yourself the freedom to reach them in whatever way you come up with in the heat of the moment. Okay. Another technique is to outline your story, but try and put it out of your mind and write as a pantser. You only refer back to your outline if you get truly stuck. However, you can argue this is not really pantsing, as the outline will have influenced your thoughts. Why is this clickable? To some extent, even if you're not aware of it. For the most part, it's far simpler to pick an approach, either writing as a plotter or a pantser, and get truly comfortable with it. You can always choose the other approach during a later project. So, in terms of picking whether pantsing or plotting, I think you just don't think. Just don't think and just write. And if you feel like, oh no, I need structure, I can't live with this chaos, then plot. And if you think, oh my gosh, plotting is so organized and strict and limiting, then you try mixing them and see how that goes. But just don't think so much about it like, am I a pantser? Am I a plotter? Which is going to work for me? I have no idea. Can I even be a writer if I can't choose between these two? Just don't think and just enjoy your writing journey. That's what I would say. I was doing hand gestures, but you didn't see me. So, okay, yes. So they didn't really mention the hybrid approach. The hybrid approach is plantser. Not a lot of people talk about plantsing, but I do see a lot of people talk about that they are a little bit of a planner and then they are a little bit of a pantser. So it's not unusual. And some of these people are published. So it's not an unusual, like, hybrid approach. It doesn't seem to be particularly unusual. And it seems like a lot of pantsers who, people who have started out as pantsing, there have been a lot of pantsers who turned into plantsers because they figured out that they actually benefit from having a little more structure in their writing life. So then they decide to give themselves a teeny bit of an outline. So they are doing exactly what was it? Where was that? Outline your story, but they only refer back to the outline when they get stuck. Or that they have an outline, certain key moments in the book, allow themselves to reach freedom whenever they come up with something in the heat of the moment. So that was like that example that I talked about before of this plotter that I talked to on Discord about what did they do if they come up with like a new idea and then they already have this strict outline? Do they allow the outline to be a little bit more flexible? And they said, yes, that's what they do. So there are people like that. Anyway, I'm a pantser to the core. So anyway, moving on. How do you know if you should write as a pantser? How do you know? How? Tell me, PJ McNulty, how do we know? Hopefully at this stage of the article, you're equipped with a sound level of knowledge about what plotting and pantsing each entail, and you have all the info you need to choose an option and get started. But what if you can't decide? For the most part, we recommend most writers to take the plotter approach to fiction, at least when they're just starting out. Juggling everything that makes a novel great is hard enough as it is without having to come up with its plot on the fly. However, nothing beats getting hands-on experience and seeing which approach you prefer and which produces better results for you. As writing for novels is time-consuming, why not test the waters by writing a number of short stories, some according to the plotting approach and others according the pantser approach. Oh, come on. Typos. By doing this, you'll have personal first-hand experience to support whichever road you just to take for a full-length novel. You just need to take, I guess. Is that it? Yep, that's it. That's it for this article. How do you know? Yes, well, I do think it's a good suggestion to start out with short stories, and if you do want to experiment with both sides of the world, you can experiment with both sides of the writing world. Write a little short story with some plotting. Write a little short story on the fly. Like someone say, okay, write me a 500-word flash fiction story about a duck crossing the road. Okay, and go. And then you just start writing. You can even time yourself how long it took you to just write. You just write and write and write and write and write. And you just keep moving the story forward. Don't make any sort of moments where characters are just sitting around and doing nothing. You have to have them doing something every single time to keep yourself interested. Anyway, so I think that is good. It is a useful, that's what I'm looking for, a useful suggestion to write these short stories and to experiment to see what works for you. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that. But if you're someone like me, you're already a pantser to the core, and if you have never tried plotting a story before, then yes, if you want to try it, you want to dip your toes into the plotting waters, then you can do that. But if you're someone who has tried it in the past and has not worked for you, then don't do it. Just keep on pantsing and live your great pantsing life. There's nothing dangerous about pantsing, let me tell you. So I did try plotting once, and I couldn't write that story for 2 years because I just felt so limited and caged and everything, and just trapped in I can't do anything outside of this. What am I going to do? Writer's block, writer's slump was at an all-time high. And then I thought, I really want to write this story about magical gems. So I am going to write the story about the magical gems. I am going to keep the characters. I am going to keep the sort of basic idea. It was a 4-book series idea I had. So a basic idea of the 4-book series, what is going to happen in each book. Just the basic idea. And I'm going to keep some of the lore that I had already created. And then I'm just going to write. I am just going to write and see what happens. And I also plugged the books into a personal nano challenge. So I set up a month, whatever day that I started, I just set up a month for 50K. So, and then, you know what that did? I wrote 4 books in 2.5 months after not writing them at all for 2 years. So, either it was all that brewing in my head and I just exploded all out, but forcing myself to write within a 1-month time frame and forcing myself to write 50K also did help me squeeze out those books, and I quite like how they turned out. They do need to be edited. There's like things going on all over the place, and I don't know how I'm going to edit 4 books to make sure they are all connected as the series yet. But that's a problem for me in the future, just for future me, which future me is not going to think, but I mean, that's the way things are. So if you should or should not write a pantser, if you want to experiment, like, go ahead and do it. And I think their suggestion to take these short stories ideas is good. Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of this article. So this is the end of the article. The very end of the article. There's nothing else here, okay? So we don't know when this article was published. There's nothing in the URL either. So I have no idea when it was published. But anyway, what'd you think of this article? Do you think it was a good, helpful article? I, for one, had a lot of disagreeing type of tone to take on this article, because pantsing is not like a dangerous thing. And there are no, like, I mean, yes, there are, like, I don't know, issues like to work through. Like, there are issues, but you can work through them and you can find solutions that can work for you, and it's not going to be the end of the world. So anyway, are you a pantser? Are you a plotter? Do you have a wall full of sticky notes? Or do you have moments where the story just starts writing itself, as pantsing for me does sometimes, and some of the people who have pantsed have said that. Anyway, this article needs some fixing, as in typos. It didn't say anything particularly weird, except suggesting that pantsing is like the end of the world somehow. But I guess we'll let that slide. But selfpublishing.com might be worth looking at other articles on this site. Anyway, that's the end for this video. I hope you enjoyed that or found that interesting. Maybe you figured out something about yourself as a writer. Who knows? Anyway, so let me know in your thoughts in the comments down below. And your secret word for this video is chickens, because why not? And anyway, that's it. Hope you have a lovely day, and or a lovely rest of the day, depending on how much of the day you have left in that day. And you will hear me in the next video. That's it. The fox is out.